Hi, part 3. I want to go over some common code errors. So as you can see, this thing is working properly right now and it does knit and the output is very simple. I just deleted a bunch of stuff from the last video. I just have tidyverse and then I make a plot, right? That's it. So with this, right, if I'm going to talk about the errors that you'll commonly see, I don't actually need the output. Let's just talk about the code itself. Everything is working as intended right now, but let's say I'm going to restart R, which basically means in your case is just like, okay, I closed RStudio and I opened it again and I'm like, okay, yippee, restarting R session, everything is restarted, very cool. Try to run this and it says something like this. It says error in this thing, could not find function this thing, right? So this is the one of the most common errors is just you didn't actually load in the packages. If it ever says could not find function, that usually just means that you either have not defined that function yourself or that function is part of a package that you haven't loaded in, right? So reason number 1, reasons. 1, you didn't define that function yourself. Probably not the case, right? 2 is the probably, which is the case, is you didn't load in the package that the function exists in, right? We talked about this function when we introduced Dippler for the first time, right? dpylr, and that exists in tidyverse. So you actually have to load in the package. Once you load in the package, this will not work, right? So that's basically function, right? Same kind of idea with this thing. So I'm going to restart this real quick. Restart R. Okay, I closed R. I reopened R. None of my packages are loaded in. Let's do library dplyr. Okay, this works, which means that this thing is going to work, but is this thing going to work? Is ggplot going to work? Did I load in ggplot? It's going to be mad at me. Could not find function ggplot. That's because, again, I didn't load in ggplot2. All right, I do that. Then I run this, then it works. Everything does work, right? So this is generally what you're going to find. Reasons for could not find function. Okay, all right. Another very common thing I see is you just forget a quote somewhere or you forget a parentheses somewhere or something like that, right? So let's see a couple cases. Let's do this plus sign maybe, right? I forget the plus sign. What happens? It does work, except my labels don't show up. In this case, it's not really an error. It'll just be annoying, right? It's going to have an additional output that says, okay, I have a title, that's this thing. I have my subtitle, that's this thing, and I have some label. Anyways, don't worry about this too much. This is not an error. It's just you didn't actually put this as part of your thing, so it's not going to show up as your graph. So some things might not appear as an error, but you still do need it, right? Let's delete a different plus. Let's see what happens. I have a different plus. The plot works, but then once I get to facet wrap, which I didn't actually add on to that graph, it says, cannot add these things together. Did you forget to add this object to a ggplot object? Yes, I forgot to plus it, right? Same kind of idea if I delete this thing, the pipe operator. It's mad at me because it just gives me my data, but then my ggplot is not actually connected to my data. Did you accidentally pass AES into the data argument? That's just because, you know, when I do this, it automatically passes this thing into the first argument. So before AES, right? So that's if you forget a thing. Let's delete a quote. See what happens. Unexpected symbol. Unexpected symbol happens a lot when you delete a quote because then it'll look for the next quote and then it's like, okay, you never, this is now the end of the quote. All of this, even though you pressed enter, you did all of that, that's still part of the same quote. Then you have for and then space. Remember we have for loops are a thing, so this is a keyword, even if it was the 3 species of viruses, something similar would happen. It would see unexpected symbol in. This just means that this is not a thing. This is not like something that R can understand as like a word or like, a variable or something like that, right? So, yippee, you need the quotes. What happens if you delete a parentheses? This parentheses, if you delete this, it's not going to matter because it's inside the quotes, which is just random text. That's just a normal typo. That's not going to actually do anything. But let's delete an important parentheses. Maybe this one right here, right? So I never ended the species, the facet wrap function until all the way we see here. So that's technically the end of that facet wrap. And then this just becomes like a weird thing that you add on to species. We don't really know what's going on here, right? It's gonna make an error, of course. It says incomplete expression. And sometimes these kind of errors are hard to notice because it's not immediately obvious where that quote unquote incomplete expression is from. You just got to manually check. And the nice thing about R is that if you hover next to a parentheses, right, the end of a parentheses, sorry, not the beginning, it'll show you, it'll highlight very faintly. If I zoom in a little bit, it'll highlight where the start of that parentheses as well, right? For example, this one, this parentheses highlights this one for the AES. If I go to the next one, it highlights the ggplot. This one is just right next to each other. This labs, oh, it does work, right? It says this labs is closed by this parentheses right here, which is nice. Oh, it does work with the start. What the fronk, man? I'm stupid, right? But then this has nothing. So, yippee, do that. You can find parentheses pretty easily. And this works regardless of how much nesting you have, right? You can have a bunch of different brackets or square brackets or parentheses or whatever. It's always going to highlight which one is which, right? Which bracket pairs up with which bracket. And if there's a bracket that doesn't line up with anything, you know you found your error. Add the bracket back in where you need. Anything else might just be like random typos. For example, species in this data set is capitalized. If I don't do that, it's not going to work. Can't select columns that don't exist because lowercase s species doesn't exist. Uppercase s species does. What else? Oh, a common thing that I see is I'm going to do a where thing. Filter. Sepal width equals. Let's do species. Species is more. Species equals Virginica. I forgot if that's what it is. Hang on. I'm testing right now. Let's just do Setosa. Easy, very easy, very nice, right? I guess that is one of the things, right? If I accidentally do capital S, then there is nothing here, which means that if you try to color based on species, then there is nothing that got filtered out. So that's not gonna work, right? So lowercase s makes it so that even though there's only one species in here now, it does actually produce the thing that you want. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is single equal sign instead of double equals, right? Double equal sign is testing for equality. Single equal sign is saying, this is my parameter, this is the argument that I want to put in. There is no parameter called species, so you can't actually put in an argument to that. What we're actually trying to do is test for equality, right? It tells you here, this usually means that you used single instead of double equal sign, right? So that's a very common thing. What else? If I don't include this inside here, there's no species for this to even filter by because I never selected the columns in the first place. So this thing will say, filter object species not found. You just didn't actually select species inside the columns that you needed. Species, so you need that as well.